All right, everybody, we're going to look at numbers today, and there's a lot of similarity that you'll recognize with Hebrew numbers. In fact, I have a sheet you can download on our course website that draws those comparisons. The major difference you're going to notice is in the number one. In Akkadian, we have Ishtain as our number one. In Hebrew, of course, we have Echad. And so that difference is a pretty widespread um, when it comes to the rest of the Semitic languages having some sort of chad element. For example, Aramaic has had, Arabic wahid. Um, I believe Ethiopic is also similar to a wahid as well. So you have, this unique number here in Akkadian for number one. The rest of them, if you were to recognize them, you would probably be able to draw on your knowledge of Hebrew in order to translate the Akkadian. Um, where it gets a little interesting, or let's say it this way, there's an easy side and a hard side when it comes to reading the Akkadian. And the interesting part of that is how we use the Sumerian logograms, how we read them in transliteration. Now, when we just look at the logograms, this is really easy. In fact, I expect everyone to know how to read Sumerian logograms for numbers. If you just look at the left here, number one, Ishtain is just a mark down. Shina is just 2 marks down. Shlashat is just 3 marks down. 4, Erbet is just 2 and 2. Khamshat, 3 and 2. Sheshet, 3 and 3. Sabet is 4 and 3. Samanat is 4 and 4. Tishit, 9 is 3, 3 and 3. And 10 is U. And it's interesting. Let's just talk about some of these really quick. So when we look at number one, dish in Sumerian, it's a difficult logogram to process sometimes because the mark down can simply mean the number one, Ishtain, which you will see in transcription with a numerical. You'll actually see our logogram one, in counting numbers. You'll just see the number one when we want to count it as the number one. Sometimes you'll see it as dish when we mean it as shumma, shumma. And so this is very prominent in Omen literature. Omen literature, you're going to see dish regularly in place of shumma. In some places, you also see ash, which is just a horizontal version of dish. It's just one mark going the other way. So you'll also see this downward mark, this number one, when scribes want to indicate a personal name, and usually it's a masculine personal name. And so if you see that one, it could just be denoting, okay, it's now a determinative to indicate to you that what follows is someone's name. So if your name, is Louis, for example, you may have this downward strike, the Sumerian sign for the number one, and then Louis right after your name. And the way we'd read it in transcription is a superscripted lowercase m, a superscripted lowercase m. That's going to be your determinative use of this logogram for the number one. Also see it in the measurement, in Sumerian, it's nigida is as the measurement. The Akkadian, I think, maybe in kurs. Let me see really quickly. I am forgetting here. It's kind of complicated because when it's used as a measurement, it's used with numbers, and numbers, when you're measuring things and this is a units measurement, this nigida, which I believe is panum in Akkadian, it's panum. And that is, it measures volume or capacity. So I think in a couple of our examples from the text, we'll see this downward mark, not just to mean the number one, but to mean a panum. Okay. So a type of measurement, a type of volume, effectively. So that can be a little tricky. And sometimes that will be normalized as nigida or p. Um, and that can be complicated. If it's not normalized as nigida, or p, then what complicates it we may see it in the text sometimes as one. I think that may be something to um, correct in further revisions of this text, just to indicate we're talking about a unit of measure and not necessarily a number itself. All right. So this is the gist of numbers. Please get a look at all forms, both the absolute form and the free form. The absolute form, we'll basically use when counting things, and the free form is the number itself. Okay. And just to look, to continue on our counting, you'll see that 11, 12, 13, etc. basically follows the same sort of sign logic, where you'll have a 10 and then the number, or two tens or three tens, four tens, five tens, etc. Um, One thing to say about this, going back really quickly to number 10, oo, this happens to be our oo1 in our sign list. And the U1 is not very commonly seen. When I made the sign chart for you to see in the video, I included U1 because it's the first designated U. The problem for us is we're going to see U2 in the middle of words and U3 to mean and or, much more common than we will see this one. So be aware of that in your reading. And if you ever encounter, I mean, this is at a cuneiform level reading, but you should still know it even if you don't encounter it when you read. So that's the gist of numbers. Go ahead and check them out in chapter 23, and pretty straightforward. Look at the handout. A lot of correspondence with Hebrew, and as always, we will continue with our next topics.